Good morning, everyone. My name is Councillor Stephen Holliday. I'm the chair of the Etobicoke York Community Council. We have quorum. I'm now calling meeting number 10 to order. Welcome, everyone. Today's meeting is being held by video conference and in person at the Etobicoke Civic Centre in the council chamber. This meeting is also being live streamed online at youtube.com/Toronto City Council Live. Although we may be meeting in different locations today, Community Council would like to acknowledge that the land we are meeting on is the traditional territories of many nations, including the Mississaugas of the Credit, the Anishinaabe, the Chippewa, the Haudenosaunee, and the Wendat peoples, and is now home to many diverse First Nations, Inuit, and Métis people. We also acknowledge that Toronto was covered by Treaty 13 with the Mississaugas of the Credit. If you're registering to speak at today's meeting, please listen. If you are registered to speak at today's meeting, please listen for me to call your name. I will call speakers in the order they appear on the list. If the list of speakers can be viewed online by visiting Etobicoke York Community Council. The page is at toronto.ca/council and clicking the speakers box for today's meeting. Members, the city clerk has provided all agenda materials on toronto.ca/council and on the CMP, the clerk's meeting portal. Clerk's IT staff are available to members if you need help with your devices. I also want to remind you to please submit and approve your motions by email. Staff are available at etcc@toronto.ca to help with motions. Are there any declarations of interest under the Municipal Conflict of Interest Act? If you do have an interest, please indicate the item number and the nature of your interest. Seeing none, we will proceed. May I have a member make a motion to confirm the minutes from our meeting on November 13th, 2023. Councillor Nunziata moves. All those in favor? Any opposed? And that is carried. We will now go through the items. EY 10.1 is 2 and 10 East Mall Crescent zoning bylaw amendment application decision report - approval. We have speakers registered for that, so that will be held. EY 10.2 is 3350 Weston Road, zoning bylaw amendment application, decision report approval. And we have a speaker registered for that item, so that will be held. EY 10.3, 251 to 285, the West Mall zoning bylaw amendment application, appeal report. There are no speakers registered for that, so I can move the staff recommendations. All those in favor? Any opposed? That carries. EY 10.4 is 2, 7, and 10 Queen Elizabeth Boulevard, 506, 514, 516, 520, and 522 Royal York Road, and 3, 5, and 15 Sinclair Street, zoning bylaw amendment application appeal report. There are no speakers registered. Deputy Mayor Morley.
I'd like to move staff recommendations.
Deputy Mayor Morley moves the staff recommendations. All those in favor? Any opposed? That item carries. EY 10.5. That is 4884 to 4896 Dundas Street West, official plan amendment and zoning bylaw amendment application appeal report. We have speakers registered, so that will be held. EY 10.6, 307 Lake Promenade residential demolition application. We have a speaker registered, so that will be held. EY 10.7, which is 10 Scarlett Road, non-residential demolition application. Councillor Nunziata.
Yes, I will move that we approve the application, but I just wanted to make a comment if I can. So this building actually belongs to the city. The city expropriated this building for the widening of the St. Clair and Scarlett Road Bridge. So I guess I was wondering why it's, if it's the city that's asking for it because of the widening of the bridge, and why that information wasn't sent to the staff that is part of the project for the widening of the bridge. So I am supporting it, but I just find it a little bit strange that it's on the agenda and it's a city building, and why other staff were not informed of this. But I will support the demolition. We need that because we're widening that St. Clair and Scarlett Road Bridge, and the city expropriated the property.
So Counselor, there's two options. There's with conditions or without, if you're going to support the demolition. And if you wish, we can hold it.
Yeah, please, yeah.
We'll hold that item.
Yeah.
Get some clarity on if
Because,
it's
yeah,
option 2
I
or
think
3. Okay,
I need to speak to staff, like, it's their building,
okay.
staff.
We'll hold that item.
Okay.
EY 10.8, 36 Rayside Drive, application to remove a private tree. We have no speakers on that item, so I will move staff recommendations. All those in favor? Any opposed? That carries. EY 10.9, 47 West Point Lane, application to remove a private tree. We have speakers registered, so we'll hold that item. EY 10.10, 13 Murrie Street, request for a fence exemption to the Toronto Municipal Code, Chapter 447. We have a speaker registered, so we'll hold that item. EY 10.11, application for a clothing drop box location permit located at 9 Milvan Drive. That's Councillor Perutzis. We'll hold that item.
Mr. Chair, we don't need to hold. I'd just like to move that it be denied.
Okay.
Peruzza.
Councillor Peruzza, can I, sorry, we didn't know you were there because we can't see any reference up on the screen. So maybe you can work with Clerk's IT to make sure that we're aware that you're around. Okay, we got you. So I'm sorry, you want to move to deny?
Yes.
All right, Councillor Peruzza moves to deny. All those in favor? Any opposed? That carries. EY 10.12, traffic calming measures on Kingsway Crescent between Thorndale Avenue and Queen Anne Road. We have speakers registered, so we'll hold that item. EY 10.13, speed bumps, Pantelis, Kalamaris Lane between John Street and Elsmere Avenue. We have no speakers registered. Councillor Nunziata? We do not. Councillor Nunziata moves the staff recommendations. All those in favor? Any opposed? That carries. EY 10.14, compulsory stop control, Windust Gate and Allonsius Drive. No speakers registered, so I'll move the staff recommendations. All those in favor? Any opposed? That carries. EY 10.15, 801, the Queensway construction staging area. We have a speaker registered, so we'll hold that item. EY 10.16, accessible parking spaces, January 2024, delegated. Councillor Nunziata.
Yes, I'll move the staff recommendation.
Councillor Nunziata moves the staff recommendations. All those in favor? Any opposed? That carries. EY 10.17, parking amendment, Sable Street. Councillor Nunziata.
I'll move the staff recommendation.
Councillor Nunziata moves the staff recommendations. All those in favor? Any opposed? That carries. EY 10.18, parking regulation amendments, St. Clair Avenue West. Councillor Nunziata.
So just to the clerk, so this was added on to the agenda, the one I gave you this morning? It's here on the agenda. Yeah. So you don't have to add it on, so. Yeah, yeah. So you could take, I just noticed it was on the agenda. Yes, so I would like to move the recommendation.
Councillor Nunziata moves the recommendations. All those in favor? Any opposed? And that carries. EY 10.19, crossing guard at Judhaven Road and Thistledown Boulevard. Councillor Crescent.
Mr. Chair, I'll move staff recommendations, please.
Councillor Crescent moves the recommendations that are before the committee. All those in favor? Any opposed? I'm voting slowly here. And that item carries. EY 10.20, 56 Colville Road, 1465 Lawrence Avenue West.
I'll move the staff recommendation.
So let me finish.
Oh, sorry.
Got to make sure it's legal. So 56 Colville Road, 1465 Lawrence Avenue West, 2059 Weston Road, 2625 Weston Road, designation of fire routes, and amendment to Chapter 880 fire routes. Councillor Nunziata moves the staff recommendation.
Move the staff recommendation.
All those in favor? Any opposed? That carries. EY 10.21, 215 Ryding Avenue, designation of fire routes and amendment to Chapter 880 fire routes. Councillor Nunziata.
Move staff recommendation.
Councillor Nunziata moves the staff recommendations. All those in favor? Any opposed? That item carries. EY 10.22. I'm just going to confirm with the clerk. Do we need to move to add this to the agenda? Okay, so we'll take a motion to add EY 1022 to the agenda, safety review of the intersection of Islington Avenue and Muir Avenue, Millwick Drive. Councillor Perruzza motions to add that to the agenda. All those in favor? Any opposed? That item is being added. Madam Clerk, are we in order to process this right now? Clerk recommends we'll just wait till the end to give everyone a chance to read it. Okay, very good. So we're back to the top, EY 10.1, which is 2 and 10 East Mall Crescent zoning bylaw amendment application, decision report approval. And we have some registered speakers. Bear with me here. Our first speaker is Elisa Mesiti. Elisa is online. Good morning, Elisa. It's Stephen Holliday, Chair of the Etobicoke York Community Council. Can you hear me okay?
Good morning.
All right.
Can you hear me?
Yes, welcome to the Community Council. You've got 5 minutes to speak to us. Please begin as soon as you're ready.
Thank you. And I just want to start off by saying I apologize if you hear my kid behind me. He woke up just in time for this meeting from his nap, so he might be a little bit, he might interrupt me a bit, but I apologize in advance. But thank you for allowing me to speak at this meeting. I'm going to make this very short and sweet. I live next door to the proposed building on Silver Hill Drive. So I'm an immediate neighbor to this building. And I'm coming from the perspective of a very concerned mother and young family. This isn't the only building that's coming up in this area, and within a 1 kilometer radius, there's at minimum 12 buildings plus that are going up, condominiums in the area. And what's been concerning even prior to all these developments is the fact that there has been no plans from the city to support not just the current residents of the neighborhood, but all these new families that are going to be coming in. And I'm specifically talking about schools and daycares and community centers and all of the community resources that we rely on as young families for our children. There are zero plans mentioned anywhere with regards to what the city plans to do to support these families, us as a family, people who've been living here for many years. I am worried about where my kids are going to end up going to school, how congested these schools are. I already had concerns, and I've been on a wait list with regards to daycares for my newborn child. I'm on a wait list now for almost 2 years to get him into a daycare. So where are the plans from the city to support its current residents and the people who are going to be coming in? There's going to be thousands and thousands of people and families and children. And it's very concerning that there are no plans from the city to support any of us. So I strongly oppose this development coming in for those specific reasons. I also have noticed that in the neighborhood, since a lot of the developments have been popping up specifically along Dundas, the traffic in our neighborhood, in our residential neighborhood, has increased, which is fine, that's not the concern, but the concern is it has been starting to bring in a lot of what we have seen as homeless people in the neighborhood. And I've had people on my property who, have decided to make temporary home on the property, and I have noticed these issues have started to appear since there's been a lot of developments in the neighborhood. How does the city plan to address these issues?
Thank you, Lisa. Are there any questions of the speaker? Seeing none, thank you for joining us today. Our next speaker is Marco Valle. Marco's online. Marco, good morning. It's Stephen Holliday from the Etobicoke York Community Council. Can you hear us okay?
Can you hear me?
Marco, could you repeat yourself, please? I thought I heard something, but it's really quiet.
Let me try again. All right, can you hear me now?
A little better. Can you get a bit louder, or we won't have a chance to hear you, Marco? Marco, do you want to give it a try? I'm going to just suggest that you speak as loud as you can because you're really quiet and the council won't be able to hear you. You want to go ahead and give it a try? I think we've lost you completely now, Marco. Okay, Marco, we're gonna go to the next speaker. We're gonna come back to you if you can still hear us. We just want to keep the meeting going and see if we can get this sorted out. The next speaker is Michael Rietta from Giannone, Petricone and Associates. Michael?
Yes. Michael.
Good morning.
Michael. Okay. Hi, Michael.
I'm here with my associate Ben Hoff from Urban Strategies. We're gonna share the podium if that's okay for this presentation.
That's fine. Are you just about, okay, we'll just take a
just
second to
gonna
get
hook
you
up,
connected,
yeah.
and then we'll get going.
And Mr. Chair, if I may, we have a joint presentation which was at the request of the Residents Association, and if we can share our 5 minutes across the two speakers, we won't be more than 10 minutes, but
Okay. With the consent of committee, we okay to join the two speakers together for efficiency? All right, we'll do that.
almost there. Great. Okay. I think we're all set.
Go ahead.
Thank you. Thank you, committee members, Mr. Chair. My name is Benjamin Hoff. I'm a planner and a partner with Urban Strategies. We've been leading the planning approvals for this project. We're very excited about this. It's a project that began in 2018 and is the first phase of a larger redevelopment of the Cloverdale Mall site. This is specifically the triangle site, right in the triangle created by the East Mall, Dundas, and East Mall Crescent. I'm going to speak a bit to the process that we went through and respond to some of the questions raised by the Residents Association in the letter to us recently. And then Mike has the pleasure of actually talking through the design and showing the project that we're very excited about. This very complex diagram shows the extent of engagement that we've had on the Cloverdale, the Triangle project, as well as the Cloverdale Mall project. And so beginning with an open house in the fall of 2018, we've worked through a whole series of workshops with the community and with city staff who have very patiently and generously given a lot of time to this overall project to advance to where we are today, including a whole series of zoning submissions beginning already in July 2020 on this file. And some of that engagement with staff is illustrated here in this very long list of the dialogue that we've had to advance both sites. And what I'll show here is just that the triangle site outlined in red, what we're here to discuss today, and how it relates to the broader vision for the Cloverdale Mall site itself, including, in response to the previous speaker, including 2 parks and a daycare, one of those parks and the daycare which would be delivered in phase 1 of the Cloverdale Mall application. So I would say it's coming. It just takes some time. These happen in stages, and we're excited about this first stage with the triangle site being the gateway and the kind of first phase of development of the overall Cloverdale Mall site. I just will speak very briefly to the project. We have a 33-story tower and a 9-story base building that face onto Dundas Street with a pretty generous public realm surrounding it. Mike will walk through the details. But I just wanted to talk about a few of the kind of benefits that come with the project, as well as to confirm and respond to some of the questions that were raised in the letter from the Residents Association. So just a checklist of confirmation of some of those details. So The site was the former site of a beer store and a gas station. Remediation is underway, including for the gas station site. So that will allow for a clean site that can be developed. Pearson Airport, the GTAA, has been involved in the review of the project and has signed off on the building heights. And the site is complying with Toronto Green Standard requirements. School bus pickup will be considered by the school boards, but obviously there's a transit stop right in front of the entry as shown here, and that can be an opportunity for pickup. From a construction perspective, the site will comply with all requirements around construction and noise, and including construction management plan will be confirmed through the site plan approval process. And then finally, there is an exciting opportunity for transit on Dundas, and the BRT, the future BRT, has been coordinated with the site, and Metrolinx and the city have confirmed there are no conflicts with future plans for the BRT. Sorry about that checklist, wanted to go through it, but I did now want to turn to some of the benefits that come with this, and Mike will talk through in more detail. There are very generous sidewalks on the site, including landscape and planted boulevards, particularly on Dundas Street, which is 12 to 15 meters wide with a lot of plantings. There's an urban street wall condition on Dundas, and really extending that urban condition toward the 427, which is the opportunity for the overall Cloverdale Mall site itself. Generously landscaped spaces throughout, including pet relief and small off-leash areas. And then 2 new POP sites, so publicly accessible open spaces at the bottom corners of the site, including a large space right at the intersection of East Mall, Crescent, and Dundas, which is also an opportunity for public art. And then really kind of a landscape architecture at this important corner in the gateway to Cloverdale Mall. And some CBC, there are opportunities for CBC contributions, community benefit contributions through the 4% program, including potentially public art at the POPs. Additional streetscaping improvements on Dundas, and then even at the city's consideration, potential other tree planting opportunities, including what was raised by the Residents Association at Silver Hill Public School. So we're very excited about this project moving forward. I'm going to let Mike turn it over to talk about the project itself and the design.
Thanks, Ben. Good morning, council members. I think for me, I'm very excited because I grew up in Etobicoke. This is a project that's close to my heart. Really, the interest, I'm just going to move back one slide. The interesting thing about this site, it is a bit of an island, and the building has no back. So we worked really hard to make sure that every edge of this building is animated, properly addresses the street, and creates a connected public realm. And that public realm is a great improvement from what's there today, and the idea is to re-urbanize Dundas Street with the POPs, the retail at the corner, amenity fronting Dundas, and the access to the site from the East Mall Crescent allows us to create this generous garden drop-off, which is the central focus for the interior courtyard of the space. I'll just move to the next slide, which has a little bit more of a detail, but again, working really hard to establish a kind of resort feel for the entry to the residential, but also animating the streetscape along Dundas East Mall Crescent. Here's a view of the elevation from Dundas. The tower is meant to be a singular element sitting on a 4-story podium and a 9-story mid-rise separating the two at the corner. The tower steps back towards the site to the north. So you can see it here on the right. The tower becomes a stepped element, which allows for terraces with views to the north. We're really excited about the courtyard experience, and you can see this is looking from the East Mall Crescent into that courtyard turnaround area there's a canopy on the ground floor there that establishes an amenity terrace on the second level and really focuses the energy of the project in the center for the residential. Looking at it from the East Mall Crescent, looking south, this corner is an amenity opportunity to, again, animate the corner with amenity that can be more like a work share kind of space at grade. And you can see the canopy terrace above with the amenity for the residents above. So the building stepping up towards Dundas. This is a view from Dundas Street, where we're, again, Ben mentioned there's a generous setback of about 12 meters to the curb. We've now reconceptualized that entire public realm with planters, seating, and a activated frontage that includes retail and amenity. This is the corner. We pushed by pulling the building back at the corner, we've created this POPs area, which is roughly 5,000 square feet of open space at the corner. This is a great opportunity to create something special here at the corner, the entry to what is going to be the future master plan community for Cloverdale, for artwork, a sculpture, something really special. We're excited about this. This would be the retail elevation. Again, looking at the courtyard, I'm just going to go quickly here. This is another view into the courtyard, talking about the kind of accessibility into the site. There's, again, focusing the vehicular movements and loading in the middle allows the edges to be really pedestrian focused. And then just roughly the overall statistics for the site, 606 units. We're achieving 2 square meters indoor and outdoor for amenity. And that pretty well sums it up. Thanks very much.
So in summary, and I think we kept exactly to our times, 5 minutes each, but in summary, just wanted to thank members of the community who participated in this process so far, still underway, in particular members of staff who have been very patient as we've navigated this, this process over the past 5 or 6 years. So thank you.
Thank you very much. Are there any questions of the speakers? Seeing none, thank you for joining us. Okay, we're going to take one step back in the order, and we're going to go back and see if we can connect with Marco Valle. Marco, it's Stephen Holiday. Can you hear us okay? Marco, can you try unmuting yourself?
Hello? Sorry, I tried calling in. I can speak louder, though. Is this a little better?
Yeah, much better, actually. Welcome to the Etobicoke York Community Council. You've got 5 minutes to talk to us. Please start as soon as you're ready.
Okay, perfect. Can I start off with, I just wanted to share a couple slides, nothing too crazy. Just kind of recapping. Actually, never mind. It's okay. So I just want to start off by going over the proposal really quick. Since the developers have gone just before me, that kind of sums it up. But it is a small parcel of land that only measures 100 meters deep by about 280 meters across, which equals out to about 4,400 square meters of space, which I feel is a very small space for 40,000 square meters of retail, 350 of it at grade, with an additional 606 residential units above that. From that, what I think happens is it creates a situation where this area currently has a large influx of developments that are already incoming, and as far as I can tell, talking to my neighbors, are very welcomed by the community, right? We have 5 existing buildings at Kipling Station. They've just received the rental building that houses the farm boy there. West of the station, there's the one that always existed, but beyond that, there's another 3 that have already gone up, mixed use. There's buildings just past that have already been closed down. That's about to get torn down for more. I believe that's 1 more building, but it could be 2. On Jopling, houses have already been torn down. A small rise is going there. 6 Points is being considered for another one. And then just west of 6 Points for another one, bringing us all the way to Cloverdale, which is already being in the process of being redone for 9 additional buildings. And then there's always the looming specter of Honeydale, which the owners have tried to turn into condos and mixed use, have not so far, and maybe they do in the future. Again, none of these have been unwelcomed by the residents or the community. And that's where I feel this specific situation is different. Because with this one, we have existing constraints that aren't being addressed. There are no plans for additional schools, and while I know it's a provincial matter, St. Elizabeth is only getting a remodel and extension. It's not a new build, right? Hospital and emergency facilities are already lacking. Queen Place at Trillium borders Mississauga, sixth largest city in the country, right? So it's not just us who go there. If you go north to North York General, first off, you're in a different ward, but additionally to that, again, because you're in a different ward, you're sharing it with other people. St. Joseph, same thing, borders an incredibly busy ward. And that's in terms of facilities and access to care. On a different lane, right, 2 years ago, December 2021, council voted to remove most car and bike parking space requirements. So when you factor all these together, it creates a very big situation where the infrastructure lacks, and it's from many directions. The road surfaces and how we can park, how we can move, how our infrastructure like transit can support us, right? My first big actual concern is if you look at the notice for this exact agenda item on the City of the Toronto website, it says that this is a substantial change to the zoning. But if you look at the notice that was sent to the residents of the area, it just addresses it like a normal zoning change, which really downplays how large of a change this is. It also, because of this, I feel like this process favors the developer, right? I haven't been able to see their floor space index calculation. And not to say that they've done anything, because I'm absolutely not accusing them of that, but we do know that that calculation can be manipulated depending on how you use spaces that get included or unincluded, right? Whether you're including all open spaces, whether we're including the spaces that the city will have to lease for these art installations, right? The notice of change on the City Council website says substantial change, but then it says it suggests leaving the southwest and southeast lanes open, which is a massive transit corridor. Should that be closed down by a future owner or future management, I don't think the city would have any recourse, and the residents, again, would be impacted greatly in accessing transit. So with that, I then also feel that such a large floor space index number lends itself to a very large building, and it is. It's a 33-story tower. That would have a large aesthetic impact on the area, and it might change the identity of the overall community. This all then brings me to FSI itself. FSI, in this specific calculation, the developers just told us the green spaces are part of the Cloverdale project, which is how they got such a high index number, right? The high ratios also correlate with very high buildings that create shadowing and a lack of sunlight, which has a negative effect on residents. We then have the noise and pollution that'll come from the years of construction that this will lead to. And once that's completed, you have the noise and pollution of so many people in the area. Can our system support that? And then lastly, something that's on everybody's mind, such a high index number for commercial and for residential, never mind for mixed use, does put a further strain on affordability. And that's at the forefront of everybody's mind, whether you're a small business owner or a resident, or if you're a large company. Everyone is worried about affordability right now. And so I hope that City Council takes all these factors into account, considering they said they're going to raise property taxes. They just voted for a councillor salary raise. They've just decreased the snow clearing for window dressing. Last year we got rid of mechanical leaf collection. So I'm seeing a lot of my services go down. So I'm really hoping my representation goes up.
Thank you, Marco.
Thank you very much, Council, for your time. And that's all I have. Thank you.
Are there any questions of the speaker? Seeing none, thank you for joining us. All right, our next speaker is Chris Stremiazeni? I don't know, Chris, help me out here.
Chris Stremiazeni.
Okay.
Easy, just you say it exactly how you read it.
Welcome. You've got 5 minutes to talk.
Thank you. I'm with Mattamy Homes, the applicant of the project. I just wanted to say thank you very much, members of the committee, for considering our application, and thank you very much to staff for working with us through a very collaborative process over the years. Really looking forward to moving on to next steps of the project, and again, working collaboratively through the next steps. So thank you very much.
All right. Are there any questions of the speaker? I actually had a quick one.
Sure.
I regret I didn't get a chance to, or I didn't remember to ask the previous speakers, but it was just around parking. So you've provided less than a parking space per unit. That's what the bylaws provide for, but if they run out of parking spaces, what's the plan? How do you deal with overflow parking?
So our parking ratio kind of matches where we think the market is today. We do have a little bit of flexibility to expand the parking garage if through the sales process we're finding there's more parking demand than we've provided. So we can expand a little bit, but we think we've designed it to match based on where the market is today and based on comparables of other projects in similar kind of locations. But we do have an opportunity to make that parking garage a little bit bigger if in the sales program we see there's more demand than we've provided.
Do you think that there's opportunities for overflow parking in the area? I mean, the concern I always have is, there's a residential neighborhood, quiet streets nearby, and, if the pattern from other locations shows, sometimes there's spillover there. Is there a commitment to try to minimize that?
Absolutely, and I think the next speaker is actually our transportation consultant, and if there's specific more detailed comments or questions on that, he might be better one to answer it.
Fair enough.
But we have provided visitor parking on site, and we think we can contain the parking demand within the property and not spill over into residential communities around.
Thank you. Any other questions? Seeing none. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you.
Our next speaker is Thomas Woodhall from PA Group.
Sorry. Thomas Woodhall is not with us. He was a transportation consultant here, just here as a reference in case any questions like yours came up, but Chris has addressed it.
Okay. Thomas is online. So did Thomas want to go ahead?
Only to you, Chair. If you had questions, I'm happy to answer anything you may have, but otherwise I have nothing to add.
Okay, then I'll take that opportunity to ask a similar question then. So with a lot of the developments in the vicinity, one of the things that I've seen is overflow parking because the parking ratios have been different than what they have been traditionally. So can you tell me a little bit about how you went through the calculations and the determinations to figure out how much parking was needed and what the plan is if that doesn't work out?
Sure. So part of our process involved looking at proxy sites in the area. So both existing developments sort of closer to Kipling Station and ones a little further afield that have been completed over the, sort of completed and operated in the last 5 to 10 years. So those ones could be considered trailing a little bit where parking is going generally across the city, which has been declining. And city staff reports have indicated that through the process of eliminating parking minimums, city staff did a great study which actually demonstrated that over time parking is coming down. A lot of that has to do with affordability, which is something that an earlier commenter mentioned. The cost of constructing parking can range between $50,000 and $150,000 a parking space. So when you're looking at building residential units that are affordable for people, a lot of people are making very calculated decisions about whether or not they can afford parking as part of a residential unit, and not just a development like this, but developments across the city. So over time, as these costs have started to become larger, we've seen less people opting to use it, and this is complemented by the good transit access that this site has as well as others. The future plans for the BRT along Dundas and the enhancements to service at Kipling Station, moving some of the Mississauga transit facilities over to Islington, the new bus terminal that's there, all have sort of created a much more inviting environment for people who are able to walk or bike or take the bus over to the bus station and transfer broadly. So when we looked at those proxy sites, what we found is that the parking here and what we're proposing is in line with those sites. But we would actually expect the demand to be a little bit lower because of the proximity to Dundas and that future transit that comes in. So this is comparable with other areas of the city. Suburban is sort of the inner suburb areas of the city. We looked at sites in North York for comparison's sake, where they have a similar sort of end of line situation. So if you think of Finch Station, for example, that's an end of terminus station similar to Kipling. There's similar sort of high order transits on some of the major streets where it's bus service, not streetcar service or something like that. So we're not looking at downtown comparables. We're looking at the inner suburbs. They all led us to come with a parking number that staff have agreed with. And what we've got here, as Chris mentioned, there is a little bit of room that can be created within the plan should sales data sort of indicate it. But we don't think that the actual demands for the site will exceed what we're proposing at this time.
So what were the comparable locations that you used?
Give me 1 second here. I will just refer to my report, make sure I give you the right number. So we looked at, I was looking at the traffic numbers, not the parking numbers. 1 second. We looked at, this is the problem with traffic reports. There are 300 pages of stuff and only 1 page is really what you want to look at. Okay. So we looked at sites in Etobicoke, including, okay. My apologies. We looked at sites to the north along in the Viking developments, the Viking Road condominiums up there, which are open and operational. So what we did there was looked at not only the parking supply, but the actual demand. So what we're able to determine through those ones is whether or not they're fully occupied, whether or not the demand exceeds. So if we see 100% occupancy of spaces like that, we understood, the demand often exceeds, but that wasn't the case in that particular case. I'm just trying to pull open another study here, if you could give me a minute.
So for clarity, Viking Lane, so that's above Kipling Station.
Sorry, further to the north of Bloor, along off East Mall. Not Viking Lane next to Kipling, the old, sorry, I'm referring to it by the old name, but the old Viking, the Valhalla. Sorry,
The Valhalla.
getting my Norse mythology confused. The Valhalla site, sorry.
All right, thank you. That's helpful. Look, if you don't have them at your fingertips, that's fine. Maybe you can just let the committee know where to take a look, and then we can
Sure.
move on. I want to keep the meeting going, and this is a technical piece.
Absolutely. Yeah, sorry, my apologies. So the committee, if you refer to the city staff report, the submissions we've made through the Transportation Services Department would refer to them. So there's about 3 sort of large reports that were submitted that contain information and updates. Our original report was submitted in May 2020, and that spoke to a lot of the parking specifics. So a lot of these rates have been worked through over a number of years. So and predated the city's current approach to reducing parking minimums.
Great, thank you very much. Any other questions of the speaker? Seeing none, thank you for joining us and for answering my questions. Our last speaker is Adam Rogers. Hi, Adam. Welcome to the Etobicoke York Community Council.
Hello.
You've got 5 minutes. Please
Sure.
begin whenever you're ready.
Yeah, I'll keep this nice and short. I wasn't actually going to speak on this item, but when I saw it up, I thought it'd be good to at least provide my insight as someone who knows that location pretty well. Honestly, I think improving that site is a great idea, although I am a bit shocked about how large they're putting it on such a small lot. Like, we're talking about a very tiny triangle lot where the beer store and gas station used to be. I mean, by all means, if they want to try to build it there, but I can really envision some real problems on that site long term once everyone moves in, as has been highlighted with parking. Look, we all want to reduce the amount of cars to improve situation for everyone, but we're talking about a site that's pretty far from Kipling Station, and this area is well known for driving. I think that maybe the developers, I'm glad they didn't actually compare it to Viking Lane, because when I heard that, I was shocked, because Viking Lane is right beside Kipling Station. Valhalla is a bit different, but the situation is that that particular area is basically ringed by major arterial roads. We're talking about Dundas, and we're talking about the East Mall. People are going to drive there. It's just the way it's going to be. Eventually, it might change. I should also highlight, I'm glad it was mentioned, there will be a bus rapid transit, but this is Metrolix we're talking about. We're probably going to see that in 10 years. Maybe, hopefully less, I'd like to, but it should be considered that for anyone moving in this area, I want more people to move in. This is a great improvement. The whole improvement of this area and the Cloverdale site, I think, is very positive. But there's some realities that I think the developers should just be aware of, that this particular area is going to be very challenging for people moving in, and that is one thought. The other two things I didn't hear, I'm assuming this is a condo. I wasn't really clear on this. But with that in mind, are there any affordable units? I'm gathering no. The report didn't seem to mention that. That's one concern I had. And one thing I noticed was, okay, you're reducing the parking, but I don't see a subsequent increase in bike parking. I mean, it is already mentioned that there's going to be a bike rapid transit, and ideally, I believe Metrolinx is also going to bring in bike lanes along that route. I think this will give that last mile to Kipling Station for e-bikes, for lots of folks. If we're not going to have the parking, I mean, it shouldn't be that much more expensive to up the bike quota for bike parking. Anyway, so that's all I want to say on that site. Ultimately, I think the approval makes sense, but I think there's a little bit of fine tuning. I don't know if we have that any option, but ultimately this site is, by all means, build it, but it's a really small site, and putting that much density on that site is a bit concerning with just how that area is located. We're talking about basically right beside a really busy part of Dundas and East Mall. Anyway, unless anyone has any questions for me, I'll end it there.
Thank you, Adam. Any questions? No. Thank you for joining us. I'll check. Are there any other speakers we missed? Seeing none. Questions of staff? I'll ask a couple. Deputy Mayor Morley, do you want me to go ahead, or do you want to go? It's in your hands. Go right ahead. Yep.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Just my questions to staff related to this item. We heard from the applicant that they've been working closely since 2018, and we heard some concerns from some of the speakers around the appropriateness of this this particular application on the site, whether it fits, et cetera. I just wanted to offer staff an opportunity to speak to the work that's gone in to get the application to the point that it is today and the appropriateness of it on this particular site.
Through you, Mr. Speaker, perhaps I could provide a general comment, and maybe Al or any of my staff could add if I've missed something. The site actually has an FSI, or floor space index, of about 4.3. That's roughly in the middle in terms of scale of development in this part of the city. We see higher FSI. The site, the arrangement of density on the site, we think is done right. It's pushed the higher height and density towards the southwest. It scales down or terraces down with open space along East Mall Crescent towards the neighborhood to the northeast. In terms of other impacts, like so there's been some discussion about parking. They're showing, I think, around 360 parking spaces for a building that has 606 units. So that's about a 0.6 ratio. That's actually substantially higher than most buildings we see nowadays. Granted, it's a lot farther walk. It's about 1,800 meters from the Kipling subway station. So it's about twice the distance of normal walkability to higher order transit. And we see higher ratios of parking in those kinds of buildings. So all in, we think it's a supportable proposal.
Thank you. That's helpful. Those are my questions, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor Morley. Any other questions? I'm just going to ask a couple of quick ones. Councilor Perruzza.
Yeah, I just missed I got remind me again, what's the difference between FSI and GFA?
Through you, Mr. Chair. GFA is a gross floor area, so it's just an absolute figure, like how many square meters is the development? Is it 10,000 square meters or 20,000 square meters? Floor space index, FSI, is a ratio of that density against the lot size. So all in, the GFA for this site is 4.3 times the area of the lot.
Okay, so fundamentally, like GFA and FSI is the same thing?
No, Councillor,
no?
They're not. No. One is an absolute measure, the other is a ratio.
sorry, sometimes my English fails me. What I meant to ask is that when you translate it to the same thing, to the same mathematical numeral, it equals the same thing, right? So absolute meters, I'm just trying to understand it. Like absolute meters, so you say, okay, look, 100 square meters over 100 square meters of land it's a 1-to-1 ratio. FSI, when you translate it back, fundamentally 100 square meters of construction over 100 square meters of land is a 1-to-1 ratio, so it's an FSI of 1, correct?
In your scenario, through the chair, in your scenario, it would be an FSI of 1.
Because I just want to know, like when we use the language, if we mean the same thing. So that, does it ever equal something different? Or can it ever equal something different? If in the end you use that common mathematical numeral to describe it.
Through the chair, I'm not 100% sure I understand the question, but
like I said, sometimes my English fails me, right?
I think there's a constant to both these numbers, and we use these measures in all our reporting. People want to know, how big is the project from a square meters point of view? Is it a 10,000 square meter project? Is it a 20,000 square meter project, right? Because then you can determine how many units might fit in such square meters. FSI is more used as a comparable against other developments. So in this case, this development at 4.3, maybe a development down the road at Kipling where the subway station is, they may venture into 5 times coverage or 6. So they're a bit bigger relative to their size.
So I apologize. So let me ask the question somewhat simpler. What's the mathematical formula for calculating FSI, floor space index?
Through the chair, the formula is the square meters or square feet of the proposal divided by the lot area.
Right, okay. All right. So and GFA you just add it up, right?
GFA is
square you add up the
square
square meters of concrete,
proposal.
right?
Some things are exempt. You have to go to the bylaw to determine that. Some things are not countable GFA, but yes, it's generally the overall size of the project.
Okay. Last question. So I got it. So on this one here, it's 4.3 when you, thank you for that, by the way, okay? It's a question I should have asked, like, I don't know, 24 years ago or something. The height, the tallest building here, how tall is that?
This proposal's
Yes.
33 stories. I haven't got my document.
33 stories, and in meters?
Meters, it's 107.
107 meters, okay. That's the maximum height, right? Okay, thank you. Appreciate that.
Thank you. Okay, I'm going to ask my questions. Should be pretty quick. Mr. Mitzi, can you explain to me the rationale around allowing the height of 33 meters? Excuse me, 33 stories, 107 meters. It's very tall, and it's close to the edge of the neighborhood. Can someone walk me through the thinking around why that's okay and not a lesser height?
Sure. I was less involved in the direct discussions with the applicant on the height, so perhaps Al or Eno might want to provide some commentary on how those discussions materialized in this height.
Thank you, Chair, for the question. The application actually did start out a little bit lower. We did extensive workshopping with this applicant. Not only did they outlined the extensive community consultation they had on the application, but we did a lot of workshopping to make sure we got the site organization right and the massing right. So we typically look at shadow impact. So we have a neighbor to the north and to the east, and we want to make sure we don't have any undue shadow impact on those areas. We do not have that with the 33-story tower. I'll remind you that there's actually a gradation in height from the Cloverdale shopping center site down through to this property. So we feel it's in keeping with the overall hierarchy of tower height in this area.
Mr. Rozowski, there's some very conscious decisions made in the past concerning the north side of Dundas Street, and it being very different than the south side of Dundas Street, which we know there's significant more density anticipated, there's more density and height approved. The north side's different, and that's a lot more residential in feel. The vision is for some expansion and development, but not high-rise. Does this building open up a precedent along the north side of Dundas? And if it doesn't, why not?
Okay, so that certainly is the case in the Etobicoke Center. So we're anticipating the highest buildings being on the south side of Dundas, and then gradation down to the neighborhoods to the north. We are not in the center with this application. We are outside of that area. Certainly we're looking at these larger shopping center sites and looking at the appropriate height and how they fit into the neighborhood context. And in this particular case, looking over at the master planning for Cloverdale Shopping Center and this property, we feel that the height is appropriate. It will not have an undue impact on the neighborhood.
Okay, so across the street on the other side of East Mall Crescent is a small commercial building. I guess we can't predict what they might do, but they shouldn't necessarily be inspired that because there's 33 stories on this side, that suddenly becomes applicable on their site. Is that a fair conclusion that I would reach?
Yes, and we have thought about that shopping center. We've actually had no development application or pre-application discussions on that site, but that would be a much different context than what we're talking about here. The site is surrounded by roads and that provide a buffer to the residential area to the east and the north.
Okay, thank you for answering my questions. Any other questions? Seeing none to speak, Deputy Mayor Morley.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and thank you again to staff for the work on this application. I also want to thank the deputants who joined us today to share their feedback, concerns, and support in some cases. I would encourage anybody who does want to get further details on the application before us to visit the AAC, to follow up with my office or with the planning staff. But I will be moving staff recommendations on this particular item and look forward to some revitalization of this particular triangle. I've been going by for the past year, and there's lots of garbage collecting and different things going on. So my thanks to the owners for taking care of those as they've been working towards approval here. So I'll be moving staff recommendations, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor Morley. I'm going to speak myself just very briefly. And it's more general comments in nature, and I thank the applicants for answering my questions and staff for answering my questions, particularly around the parking. There's no secret that I disagree with what Council's conclusion was on the parking policy, which effectively asks very little of applicants and leaves it up to others to determine what the level of minimum parking is. In this case, we heard from staff that it's a higher ratio than what you hear in many cases, but the point I'd like to leave Community Council and others is that I think that parking ratios should bear close scrutiny, particularly along the 427 corridor, and in addition, the proxy sites that are being used to compare these sites should be looked at very carefully, because I've seen a few of them come up in reports that I don't really agree. And the impact, people say, well, so what? So they don't build enough parking for those future residents and they're stuck. But the reality is that then people begin to risk manage their parking situation. They end up with a car and no place to put it. They probably need that car for work or for whatever it is they need to do. And it ends up in the neighborhood or it ends up into the parking lot of one of the businesses nearby. And, that's not fair for the surrounding neighborhood. The surrounding neighborhood is already accepting the density in the bigger buildings. they don't need to necessarily be bothered now with the externality of the impact of that new construction and the lack of putting in parking spaces. And so those cars end up all over the place. It's also not really fair for the new residents as well. I mean, of all the things you need to worry about, paying your bills, getting to and from work, maybe picking up kids, the last thing you need to worry about then is where you're going to put your car overnight. And I regret how we've approached some of the parking standards. Again, I thank the applicant in this case for answering those questions, but I hope people will continue to give that scrutiny as these different applications work through, because it matters. Thank you. Okay, on the item, on the staff recommendations, all those in favor? Any opposed? That item carries. All right, on to the next item, EY 10.2, 3350 Weston Road, zoning bylaw amendment application, decision report approval. We do have a speaker, that is Rosemary Humphreys. I think Rosemary's online. Good morning, Rosemary. It's Stephen Holliday from the Etobicoke York Community Council. Can you hear me okay?
I can hear you perfectly, Mr. Holliday, and good morning to you and the members of council and staff this morning. Can you hear me?
We can. Please proceed as soon as you're ready.
Thank you. I will not be very long. I just wanted to let you know, or let committee know, that we are in favor of the staff report. We don't have any issues with the conditions. We look forward to finish working with staff to bring this to fruition so we can get this project off the ground, so to speak. I just actually wanted to let you all know that I wanted to send out our many thanks to staff. So working so very hard with us on this project to get it to where it is, because there's a lot of interesting aspects to the project. And on that note, I think I'd also like just to sort of review some of the overall win-wins with this project. There's a substantial amount of green space that will be coming into public ownership of the TRCA towards the rear of the property. The church that's existing there today will continue to operate and function as it has in the past, and will continue to offer the community services that it does to the community, and alongside which there will be this new added residential component that we are very excited about. And I think it'll make a lovely addition to the community. So those are my comments. I'm happy to answer any questions that committee may have, should you have any. And that's all I wanted to say to you all this morning. So thank you very much.
Thank you. Are there any questions of the speaker? Seeing none, thank you for joining us. Are there any other speakers on this item? Seeing none, questions of staff? Seeing none, Councillor Nunziata to speak. Oh, pardon me. It is not. Councillor Peruzza to speak. My apologies. Got to put these glasses back on. Oh, that's a 7, not a 5.
Yeah. Mr. Chair, the only things that I would really sort of want to highlight with respect to this application in relation to many of the other things that are, many of the other applications that are coming through for that particular area, you will note that it's somewhat very reasonable. It's, you know, the FSI, for example, is 2.04. You've just heard what that number means and how that relates or translates to densities on a site. The overall height here is 15 stories, while there is also some consideration being given that the parking, for example, is not able to, to go underground. The parking structure is above ground, so what it does is it pushes the building up somewhat. But again, given some of the other sort of outlandish things that are being sort of approved and looked at in the neighborhood. I'm always reminded of Tor York, for example, on an industrial road, how our staff and historically how that application sort of got through and the densities that were approved there on a 2-lane industrial site that you can barely get out of, right, in and out of currently, imagine down the road. So it's reasonable. As you flip through all of the pages here, it's really reasonable. And in that regard, Mr. Chair, I'm happy to move the report and the staff recommendation. And I just really sort of want to acknowledge the work of our planning staff that in their reasonableness have brought forward a very reasonable application and proposal and eventual development before us today, and very much worthy of our stamp of approval. Mr. Chair, thank you.
Thank you, Councillor. Anyone else wishing to speak? Seeing none, on the staff recommendations, all those in favor? Any opposed? That item carries. All right. Our next item is EY 10.5, 4884 to 4896 Dundas Street West, official plan amendment and zoning bylaw amendment application appeal report. We have one speaker. That is Adam Rogers. Welcome back to the podium, Adam. Please begin when you're ready. You've got 5 minutes.
No problem. I'll keep this short. I just wanted to say that I think this is a good, the plan is almost there. I think that I wanted to say that staff has done a really good job of keeping the community in the loop. And I will also commend the developers who are working on it. I think that by appealing this, we can hopefully get some sort of middle ground that everyone's happy with, or at least unhappy enough that we can handle it. I think most, not to speak for everyone in the community, but I think most people want this to go in, but we want it to be in the right spot. So let's appeal this, get some sort of positive agreement for everyone. All right, that's it. Thanks.
Thank you. Any other speakers on this item? Any questions of staff? All right. On the to speak, Deputy Mayor Morley.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and thank you, Adam, for presenting on this one as well. I did want to support staff recommendations and similarly thank staff for their work, as well as the applicant, who has been very proactive on this file. Originally, there was a very different application that came before us than what is now presented, and we want to encourage the applicant to continue to work closely with staff in the community to get to some common ground that works for the Islington Village neighborhood and is in keeping with the neighborhood characteristics as much as possible, while recognizing the proximity to transit and other higher order mobility. So we'll be moving staff recommendations on this one. Thank you.
Thank you. Deputy Mayor Morley moves staff recommendations. All those in favor? Any opposed? That item carries. EY 10.6, 307 Lake Promenade residential demolition application. We have a speaker registered. And the speaker. Yep, that's Adam. Welcome back, Adam.
Hi. Actually, I don't live in this area, so I don't want to hold anything up, but it was a bit strange application, so that's why I'm speaking to it. So from my understanding, the owner owns both lots, which is obviously fine, but I don't think they're going to be replacing it with any housing. It sounds like they're tearing it down to build a extended path for their lot. I don't know how this works. I'm not an expert on this, but it does seem a little strange. I mean, we all agree there's a housing crisis. The house on file looks in pretty good condition, rentable property. They're not replacing it with anything. I mean, do you link the lots together? I don't know the details, but it is a bit strange, especially there's absolutely no, other than a drawing of the adjacent lot, there's no plans, no anything. So, I mean, it's their lot. Eventually, if they want to tear down the house, by all means, but it seems like there's a very little information on this, and it could be nice to get a little clarity on what the heck's going on here. That's it. Thanks.
Any questions of the speaker? Seeing none. Questions of staff? Seeing none. Deputy Mayor Morley to speak.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. This is as Adam mentioned, a little bit of a unique situation. However, the city is not in a position to sort of dictate to property owners what to do with their property. While I'm sure all of us would love to see home, turned into a rental. That's not required here. The owner and applicant has committed to undertaking the appropriate landscaping and maintaining the property to a high standard. If they're, able to and would like to extend their property in this fashion, that is within their rights. So I will be moving approval of the demolition and the application before us. So we're looking at number 3, approval with conditions. And so, which the motion is here before us, the conditions include that the appropriate fence, if and as required, be erected, all debris and rubble be removed immediately after demolition, and that appropriate sod and other landscaping be implemented and maintained, free of garbage, weeds, in accordance with Municipal Code Chapter 629-10, and then, of course, any holes in the property are backfilled with clean fill.
Okay, Deputy Mayor Morley moves approval with conditions. Those were spelled out. Any questions of the mover? Seeing none, all those in favor? Any opposed? That item carries.
Mr. Chair, the next one, so on number 8 that I held down for the demolition. Number 8. Well,
Yes.
yeah.
Number 8's been held. 36, excuse me, hang on. I have
10
just-
Scarlett Road. I just wanted to release that.
Okay.
No, number 8. Is it number 7? Number 7,
Number
yeah.
7, yep.
Yeah, so I did speak to staff. This is on the city building, so I'm going to move to demolish with no conditions.
Okay, EY 10.7, I'll just check. Any questions of staff on that? Seeing none. Councillor Nunziata is moving demolition with conditions?
No conditions.
Excuse me, so the, with no conditions.
That's
all right. Anyone else wishing to speak? Seeing none. Okay, on Councillor Nunziata's motion, all those in favor? Any opposed? That carries. I'll just check, Madam Clerk. Do I need to move as amended, or is that it? All right, that's it. Okay, so that's 10.7 has been processed, 10 Scarlett Road. All right, EY 10.9. 47 West Point Lane, application to remove private tree. We have speakers registered via video conference. Our first speaker is Patrick Hansen. Good morning, Patrick. Stephen Holiday from the Etobicoke York Community Council. Can you hear me okay? Patrick's... Okay, Patrick is not online, I'm being told. We'll move on to the next speaker. Akonga Okoto. Akonga, it's Stephen Holiday from the Etobicoke York Community Council. Can you hear me okay? Akonga is not available either online. I'm getting the signal. We're just gonna, so the clerk's just asking for a moment if everyone should just give us a moment. Thank you. Okay, just in conference with the clerk, we're going to go to the next item. We will come back to 10.9. I think there's a plan either way to deal with that item. So we'll go to EY 10.10, which is 13 Murrie Street, request for a fence exemption to the Toronto Municipal Code, Chapter 447. We do have a speaker registered. That is Delieva Ayala. Delieva, welcome to the Etobicoke York Community Council. Please come up to the front. You've got 5 minutes to speak to the council, and please begin when you're ready.
Good morning, Chair and Council members and staff. My name is Delieva Ayala. I'm the owner of 30 Murrie Street. I'm here today to request a fence height exemption for my backyard. I'll give you a little bit of history. I moved into my semi-detached house 2 years ago in May of 2021. When I bought this property, the current fence on the west side and the south side were already there and under 3 years of construction, so fairly new, very new. The fence on the east side was over 30 years old and was dangerous, and it was falling over in this repair. I went ahead and replaced the east side fence this summer. The reason it is slightly higher than the 2 meters allowance is because the neighbor who shares a wall with my semi-detached house on the east side has a deck that is 2 feet above the ground. And I also have a similar deck, so we both have decks. If the fence was built at the allowed 2 meters from the grade, then the fence will only be 4 feet above the deck surface. So we would have zero privacy, being able to see right into each other's yards. So it would be around this height. If the fence, the neighbor's property on the west side of my house has around 8 inches higher grade than my house and also has an elevated deck. This fence allows for privacy for both sides. The neighbor on the south side has an elevated deck of over 24 inches. I would like your kind consideration on this matter as I live alone on a busy street and I need a private and safe backyard. If these fences were any lower, we all lose our privacy and safety. These are all the reasons why I'm asking for the fence exception to protect the surroundings of my property. Kindly notice that all 3 adjacent neighbors are in support of the fences and would like to keep it as is, to also enjoy their privacy. I provided the City Council with their letters of support. I am asking for the alternate recommendation to grant the application for a fence exception permit. Thank you very much for your time today.
Thank you, Dalieva. Are there any questions of the speaker? Seeing none, thank you for joining us. And are there any other speakers on this item? You're welcome to take a seat again.
Thank you.
Thank you. All right, questions of staff. Councillor Morley? Councillor Morley to speak.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And thank you, Dalieva, for joining us today and for your submission. I thank our colleagues in MLS for attending the site and providing us with a report on this application. I will be moving the alternate recommendations to approve the application here. I think the case has been well stated as relates to the privacy concerns as well as the support from surrounding neighbors. It's a beautiful yard and very well kept. I think it should be able to stay as is. So that's my recommendation, Mr. Chair.
Deputy Mayor Morley moves the alternate recommendations. All those in favor? Any opposed? And that item carries. Our next item is EY 10. We're just going to go back. I'm going to check with the clerk to see if we're ready to go back. Okay, we're going to hang off on 10.9. We're going to go to the next item then. EY 10.12, traffic calming measures on Kingsway Crescent between Thorndale Avenue and Queen Anne Road. We have a number of registered speakers. The first speaker I have is Isaac Shirokov. So Isaac here in the council chamber or online? Isaac Shirokov. Isaac Shirokov? No. Okay. Our next speaker is Paul Clark.
Yes, I'm here.
Paul, welcome to the Etobicoke York Community Council. You have 5 minutes to speak to the members. Please begin when you're ready.
Okay, good morning. My name is Paul Clark, and I already spoke in front of the council opposing this project back at the November meeting. I live at 77 Dunedin Drive, which is a few blocks away from Kingsway Crescent. I am here representing my parents who live at 39 Kingsway Crescent and also oppose this project. Councillor Amber Morley, who is recommending this project, said at the last meeting in November that more consultation was needed with the residents on the street because of the interest in this project. It has been 2 months since the last meeting, and no one has reached out to my parents from the city regarding the issue. There have been no emails, phone calls, or letters from the city. This should have been done before the last meeting and still hasn't. My family has reached out to other neighbors we know on the street, and none of them have heard anything from the city. She said in her letter dated November 9th, 2023, that widespread support has been demonstrated, but she still hasn't provided any proof that this is true. The street doesn't need speed bumps because traffic and speeding are not a major issue on the street. My parents have lived on Kingsway Crescent for the last 50 years, first at 16 Kingsway Crescent for 10 years, and now 39 for the last 40 years. And we have never noticed a huge issue with speeders on the street. Too much traffic is not a problem on the street. There are also already stop signs at every intersection from Thorndale Avenue to Bannon Avenue, which already slows cars down. We also oppose them because of the inconvenience of having to stop over and over again getting bumped by them. They waste time. This is also going to be an issue when an emergency vehicle needs to get to a house quickly on the street. My parents are particularly worried about this because they are in their 80s, and the speed bumps will start right at the beginning of their north driveway. Their house is right at the intersection of Kingsway Crescent and Queen Anne Road. They are also very ugly to look at. Who wants to look at an ugly speed bump in front of their house? They will ruin the beautiful historical look of the street. The other issue is because the speed bumps are going to start at Queen Anne Road and Kingsway Crescent, drivers will simply avoid them by turning on Walford Road over to Government Road and continuing on Earlington Avenue to get to Dundas Street. This will apply in both directions because drivers will just turn on Earlington Avenue off of Dundas and continue on Walford going back to Kingsway Crescent to avoid the speed bumps. This will be a huge issue for my brother because his house, number 8 Queen Anne Road, is right at the corner of Queen Anne and Walford. So he will see a huge increase in traffic on the Walford side of his house. Walford Road is also a very narrow road. It is the most narrow road in the area that many children use to walk to Lambton Kingsway Public School. This is particularly an issue in the first block where drivers turn on Walford from Kingsway Crescent because there are no sidewalks in that section of the street until you reach Bannon Avenue traveling west. The increase in drivers will make this section more dangerous for the children and other pedestrians that use the street. Another issue with the proposed route is that there are always cars parked on the street in front of the homes on the east side of Kingsway Crescent in between Government Road and Thorndale Avenue. They are there all the time because those homes don't have driveways. They'll end up parking on top of some of the speed bumps because they are always parked along that entire block. It has always been difficult navigating that section of the street because you have to worry about being trapped in the middle with a car coming in the opposite direction. The speed bumps will make it even worse traveling through that area. I addressed both of these concerns at the last council meeting, and I don't see either one of them being addressed in the file on the city website for this proposal. The city is currently running a $1.8 billion budget deficit. Do we really need to be wasting taxpayers' dollars on projects like this that aren't even necessary? It's projects like this and the bike lanes that have created the fiscal mess we are in right now. There's probably less than 1% of the population using bike lanes for half the year because of the weather, and the city wants to keep building more and more of them. On top of that, they've created gridlock all over the city and on Bloor Street and the Kingsway. If these speed bumps are allowed to go through on Kingsway Crescent, then we'll just see more and more of them being put on the streets in the area. This will mean that we won't just have gridlock on the major roads because of the bike lanes, but also on local inner roads because of too many speed bumps. Why isn't the cost of these speed bumps included in this proposal? The cost of these speed bumps could be as high as $300,000 based on the amount of asphalt that's going to be needed to install them along the proposed route, but we don't really know because the cost is not included in this proposal. Oh, I'm sorry, I didn't realize it. Yeah, I'm just finishing anyhow. The city needs to stop wasting taxpayers' money. Just look at the new city budget that is proposing a $10.5 property tax increase. It could go even higher, up to 16%, if the city doesn't get the $250 million they requested from the federal government for newly arrived immigrant refugees in the city. Yeah, I'm done. I just want just one more sentence. Okay, I'm done. Thank. Yeah, well, I've already submitted an email with the. I don't think it's going to make that much of a difference. Okay. It's okay.
Thank you for joining us. Our next speaker is Brian Fields. Is Brian available in the chamber or online? No, Brian. Okay. I also have a Peter Clark by video conference. Is Peter available? Okay, Peter's online. Good morning, Peter. It's Stephen Holliday from the Etobicoke York Community Council. Can you hear me okay?
Yes, good morning.
All right, welcome. You have 5 minutes. Please proceed as soon as you're ready.
Thank you. Yeah, my brother made most of my points. I live at 8 Queen Anne Road, and I think the only thing that I'd add to what my brother said is that I own and operate Kingsway Village Custom Homes, which is in the area. I work side by side with PhD Design, and we have a real passion for keeping the old Kingsway architecture as much as possible. And both him and I feel that adding speed bumps on Kingsway Crescent from Bannon to the Kingsway would be a huge mistake. The look of the Kingsway is very important, and the architecture is very important. I think that's all. We're definitely opposed to them on that stretch. Thank you.
Thank you, Peter. Are there any questions of the speaker? Seeing none, we will go to the next registered speaker. I'm just going to clarify, Madam Clerk, I have Paul Clark registered again. There's not two Paul Clarks. Okay. All right. Tom Giancos. There's Tom. Tom, welcome to the Etobicoke York Community Council.
Good morning, Council Holiday. Nice to see you again.
5 minutes. Please proceed.
I have a package that I submitted. Can I go through that slide deck? Can you put that up? Oh, I had no idea. Okay, I will do without it. Councillor Morley, nice to meet you and see you in person. We started this, I live on Kingsway Crescent, 102 Kingsway Crescent. We started this process in 2020, and the impetus was my daughter was almost run over by a speeding car. I'm often in front of community councils, typically with regards to development. We run a development company. I've never been in front of a council advocating for speed bumps. I'm not an NIMBYist, and I never thought that asking for a few speed bumps on my street would elicit such attention from Paul Clark, his family and friends. In any event, what we are asking for is speed bumps, and preferably, if this is possible, between Bannon and Thorndale. And when we started this process, the city went through a study in, I think it was we started in 2020, the city went through a study, and we had to meet a certain number of criteria. We met 8 of those 9 criteria. There was one criteria that we did not meet, and it was regarding percentile of speeds. And in that study, almost every car was speeding. We have a 40-kilometer speed limit on our street, but the study ignored the fact that portions of Kingsway Crescent are also 20 kilometers. So people are speeding over 20 kilometers. They come to the stop signs, they do rolling stops, and then they speed up our section of Kingsway Crescent, which is a straightaway. And we're often dealing with people speeding. So again, all we are asking for is a few speed bumps, and if Councillor Morley and this council, in their wisdom, saw it fit for those speed bumps only to be between between government and Bannon, we're happy with that outcome. And I just want to, I'm not going to speak to the technical merits or issues in the report. I think you're well equipped to ask your own staff. But we also retained BA traffic groups. They're a traffic consulting group. They looked at the work that the city staff did, and what they concluded is, and I had a conversation with them, they said, A child on a bike doesn't know if a car is going 46 kilometers an hour or 48 kilometers an hour or 49 kilometers an hour. It's too fast, and all of the cars that are speeding along our stretch are speeding. And I don't benefit from this financially. It's taking up a lot of my time, but we do have a lot of households with young families in our stretch of the Kingsway that really want people to slow down, and that's all we're asking for. So we had a petition done to start this whole thing off. About 30 homes on our stretch all signed that petition. A few people wanted to actually attend, and I asked them not to. I didn't want to waste this committee or council's time with people saying the same thing over and over again. And I'm just going to go to some of the letters that were received. In terms of letters on this file, and again, I apologize, I didn't know that this would elicit such interest from certain members of our community. There were 9 emails for the speed bumps, 11 against. Of those 11, 7 of those were from Paul Clark and his family. 1 was from PH Design, who does build and design beautiful homes. He does not live on our section of the Kingsway. Paul Clark here does not live on our section of the Kingsway. He lives almost a kilometer away from our street. Peter Clark, who spoke, does not live on our section of the Kingsway. He lives on Queen Anne. Peter Clark Sr., who I have the pleasure of knowing as well, he does live in a beautiful house in our section of the Kingsway, but further south of us, not where we want the speed bumps. And there's a couple of other people that sent in letters, but again, no one lives on our stretch of the street. And some of the comments in opposition of the speed bumps were actually interesting. The letter or the email that Paul Clark read, he resides at 77 Dunedin, which again is almost a kilometer away from where we want these speed bumps installed. Mentions that his parents live at 39 Kingsway and they don't want to slow down and stop over and over again getting bumped. Well, that's the purpose of speed bumps. They're there to stop or not stop, but slow down traffic. And then he goes on to say he uses the route and he doesn't want to stop constantly and get bumped. And that's great, but I don't want people speeding up and down our street. And at one point in time, they're going to do that. They're going to run a stop sign and a child's going to get knocked off their bike or run over. And again, this has happened in various neighborhoods in the city, and we just want to mitigate it. In some of the other letters, there's one from Jen Clark, who lives on Queen Anne, and her issue is that people will use Queen Anne. Queen Anne is an east-west route, not a north-south route, so I don't follow the logic, but that's another letter in opposition. Then we have a few more people that live on Queen Anne, and their concern with the speed bumps is that it'll increase traffic on Queen Anne. I did want to speak to
Can I get you to wrap up, though, because you're over?
Absolutely, 100%. I did want to speak to some of the letters. I did attempt to reach out to Paul Clark and Peter Clark to discuss our concerns and our motivations. Those emails that I sent out were not returned. In any event, I do want to thank Councillor Morley and this council for listening to me, and hopefully, and again, in your wisdom, if we can at least have speed bumps between our section from Bandon to Government, that would be great. Thank you so much. Happy to answer any questions.
Any questions? Councillor Morley.
Thank you for coming today, and thank you for your leadership. And on this issue, I know it's been a long-standing one. There was comment earlier from one of the other deputants around the aesthetics of the neighborhood. And obviously, as a resident there yourself, I just wondered if you could offer comment about your thoughts about the aesthetics versus safety for yourselves and your family.
Sure. I am lucky enough to live in a beautiful neighborhood. I haven't lived there since 1967 or 1975. I built my own house. And again, Peter Clark, Paul's brother in PhD Design, build beautiful homes. I don't see a correlation between a few speed bumps and the overall architectural aesthetic of the Kingsway neighborhood. And what I also want to point out is there's speed bumps throughout the Kingsway neighborhood, and they don't impact the aesthetic. Typically, when you speak of aesthetic, you speak of foliage, architecture, etc. I haven't heard it related to asphalt paving.
Thank you very much. Appreciate that.
No, unfortunately, it's not allowed through the process. Any other questions? Seeing none, thank you for joining us.
Thank you,
Are there any other, I'm just going to double check here. Do we have Isaac Shirkoff here at all? Brian Fields? Are there any other speakers on this item? Seeing none. Questions of staff? Any questions of staff? No questions of staff. To speak, Councillor Morley.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and thank you to the deputants for joining us today. I do want to offer my thanks to staff who've worked really collaboratively with my office in trying to come up with a solution that might be suitable here. I do have a motion, if clerks could display that on the screen, please. So there's going to be two parts to it, and my point's well taken from the gentleman who spoke about the lack of follow-up from our last conversation, I believe it was in November, on this item. So the motion before us is to authorize the installation of traffic calming, so the speed humps on the Kingsway Crescent between, and it's a shorter stretch, so between Bannon Avenue and Government Road. And the second part of that will be requesting the manager of traffic operations to report back to us in February on the 26th meeting of the EYCC with the number and locations of speed humps. So my intention there is to, and I know my staff are listening very closely because this is direction to them, to ensure that we do a letter drop to all of the affected residents on the Kingsway Crescent stretch to advise them of this direction and encourage them, if they have any feedback, that they are welcome to join us on the February 26th meeting. So that will be an opportunity, a final opportunity as a touch point before we move forward with installation. But I am supporting the 22 residents on Kingsway Crescent, household rather, on Kingsway Crescent, who've been in touch with my office as well as my predecessor, requesting this important safety improvement for the neighborhood. So that's my motion. I look to my colleagues for support. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Nunziata.
Yes, just briefly, I will be supporting the motion. You know, when we have a petition with the residents on the street that are in support of it, you know, there are a lot of requests for speed humps throughout the city, and actually we have a lot of speed humps in Forest Hill where we have $5 million homes. You know, when it comes to safety of the community and children, it's a priority to me. And, you know, sometimes you get this traffic coming off the main street and taking these streets as a shortcut. And that happens throughout my ward, and that's why there's such a great demand for them, because of the number of traffic and, you know, the congestion that we have on our main street. So I will be supporting the councillor. There is a petition in support of it. And if residents on that street, within the motion that you moved, that are in support of it, I'm 100% in support of the recommendation.
Any other speakers? No? Okay, I'll speak. I'm going to pass the chair to Vice Chair Perruzza, if you please, sir. All right, I'm not going to support this. I want a recorded vote on it. City Council decided that they would change the traffic calming policy very recently. You know, and there was this discussion around the importance of transparency and data and how traffic safety is really important. Except what you find is that the process now is as opaque as it has ever been. And in fact, in this case, it's just pure politics. It's literally a collection of letters and signatures. This is how we're going to change the street. If you want to look at the data, I'm glad my question was answered by one of the speakers. The 85th percentile failed. That's kind of an important one, because what the 85th percentile does is it tells us what the actual behavior is on the street. And the behavior came back as not speeding. Sure, there's always going to be outliers. There's always going to be people that behave terribly. It happens on every street. The whole purpose of the traffic calming policy is to try to figure out where the problems are the worst and where you put the resources. So here we're just going to do it by a letter. I'm not surprised. It happens all the time at community council. But just to satisfy myself, just to make sure that I wasn't guessing wrong, there's open data on the city's website. And it's the watch your speed signs. There's data points all over the city. Not perfect. I don't claim it to be. But it'll tell you the 85th percentile and the various signs along that street were anywhere from 32 to 41 kilometers an hour. And it charts out, you know, exactly the behavior. And you'll see substantially that people drive at the correct speed. And yeah, of course, there's some outliers. There's some people that drove really fast. As far as I'm concerned, they should have the biggest ticket possible. But unfortunately, there needs to be a little bit of process around this so that there is some public confidence. You know, people come out and they speak about this thing, but I think part of it is speaking to the lack of transparency in the system and the lack of a data-informed approach. And that's what we've got here. So I wish we would just go through a transparent process so that it's fair to everybody. You know what? it may end up that the speed humps go in, and they were rightfully justified. But at least the people that disagreed could turn around and say, you know, we went through the process. These were the benchmarks. These were the requirements. But here you've just got, you know, you've got a bunch of letters from residents, people that spoke very passionately. Absolutely, I understand. People have a very strong feeling about this thing. But where does it leave us? It leaves us down to a community council vote of yes or no on the speed humps. It's not just this street. It'll be the next street, and the next street, and the next street that comes along, and the streets that are parallel to this. Well, we want them too. And they'll just grow. And then what unit of measure do you have to determine where they go in and where they don't? They just go in everywhere, I guess. So, I don't know. I'm disappointed when these processes lack transparency on them, and when they just come down to who can assemble the most number of petitions or the most number of letters. I don't think that's how we should be governing as a community council. I think we should be trying to build up people's confidence in the system. Whether they agree or disagree with the outcome, at least there's a process around it. And unfortunately, the newest iteration of the traffic calming policy, courtesy of City Council, I think raises more questions than ever. And so I think we're going to struggle with this for a while. But, you know, you want to know data about the street? Go have a look at it. It's all online. It's all available. With that, I will call for a recorded vote. All those in favor? Councillor Nunziata, Councillor Morley, Councillor Crescent. All those opposed? Holiday and Councillor Perruzza. That item carries. Thank you. Okay, we're going to go back to EY 10.9, 47 West Point Lane, application to remove a private tree. I understand we've resolved. Oh, I'm getting the no. They've disconnected one more time. Councillor Nunziata, I think you've got a solution for this.
Yeah, so since they're not on the line, and actually the owner hasn't contacted my office, I'm going to defer it to the next council meeting.
All right. Councillor Nunziata moves deferral to the next community council meeting. All those in favor? Any opposed? That carries. Our second last item, EY 10.15, 801 the Queensway construction staging area. We do have a registered speaker. Adam Rogers, welcome back to the podium for the meeting. You know the rules, 5 minutes. Please go ahead.
So I'll keep this one really short. I find a trend in the city that our former boroughs, with construction staging, we tend to be a little bit more sidewalk closing happy. In this particular location, we're talking about along the Queensway, south side of the Queensway. There's a plan to close a stretch of the sidewalk for 10 months. I mean, maybe the staff can clarify, but my concern is the idea is you close the south side sidewalk. You want everyone to cross Queensway and then go down 2, 3, 4 blocks and come back. It is a bit concerning. I mean, ideally, well, not only is this for accessibility reasons, this is a concern, but just for any foot traffic on that stretch, you close the sidewalk for that long length of a period. Human nature is not to go across the street. Human nature is to go onto the street. And I have a concern with the high speeds of Queensway. And don't get me wrong, I don't want to disparage the planning team. I know they're working very hard on this. It's a tough spot. It's a really narrow area that they need to work on. But I really, really need to emphasize that closing sidewalks need to be the very last. Pedestrians are vulnerable road users, and no one wants to slow down car traffic. Hopefully we can make a solution, but closing down a stretch of the Queensway for 10 months is just asking for a lot of danger for pedestrians in that stretch walking along that way. Especially we're going to be having, just with that construction, 10 months could be even longer, as we know. Okay, unless I'm assuming there's no questions, but I can.
Any questions? Nope. Okay. Thank you for joining us. Okay, questions of staff? Seeing none, Deputy Mayor Morley to speak.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Just to reassure the deputant here today, we did actually go to great lengths and delayed actually this closure for many months. Unfortunately, I'm sure to the chagrin of the developer. to really try to work through alternative options to closing the Queensway, because certainly in agreement that that is a last case resort, or you know what I mean. Unfortunately, we were unable to arrive at any alternative opportunities with surrounding landowners within the laneways to provide for the necessary staging to continue to move this project forward. So in light of that reality, my thanks to staff who've continued to work with the applicant on a suitable plan that does support and encourage pedestrian safety, provide some alternative for crossing, safe crossing, and we will be monitoring this very closely, but we'll be moving the staff recommendations to move forward with the staging required for this particular development.
Thank you. Deputy Mayor Morley moves the staff recommendations. All those in favor? Any opposed? That item carries. All right, I think we're on our final item here. EY 10.22, safety review of the intersection of Islington Avenue and Muir Avenue, Millwick Drive. That was added to the agenda. Questions to staff? Seeing none. Councillor Peruzza to speak.
Yeah, Mr. Chair, I'm happy to move. Mr. Chair, this has been an intersection that's been a problem way before my time and continues to be a problem. There's it's a gateway between a residential area and an industrial, an employment district, commercial industrial area. And lots of big trucks and trucks that have been trying to make the turns here at this intersection have been knocking down the poles, the light poles, the standards, because it's been problematic for quite some time. I think the staff would agree. So a thorough look at it from a staff perspective is warranted. It's long overdue, and that's just what that memo seeks to do, is to have the staff look at this particular gateway and figure out how to make it safe. Mr. Chair. And Mr. Chair, I'm sorry for using so many words to describe it, but I think sometimes it's important to do that. I know that the committee is eager to support it, but I also needed to outline why it is that I'm seeking to do this. Thank you so very much.
Thank you, Councillor Peruzza. Councillor Peruzza moves the recommendations. All those in favor? Any opposed? And that carries. Madam Clerk, we've got some bills. Councillor Crescent wants to move the first bill. Microphone.
Sorry, there we go. Okay, Mr. Chair, that bills 1 to 7 prepared for the January 19th, 2024 meeting, number 10 of the Etobicoke Community Council, be declared as bylaws and passed subject to section 226.9 of the City of Toronto Act 2006.
On Councillor Crescent's motion, all those in favor, any opposed, that carries. And we have a second bill. Vice Chair, you want to move the second one?
I'm always happy to do that, Mr. Chair. Confirmatory bills to confirm the legislative proceedings of the Etobicoke York Community Council acting under delegated authority at Wednesday the 10th on January 19th, at meeting 10 on January 19, 2024 be declared as bylaws and passed subject to section 22.5.9, or is it 6.9? 6.9 of the City of Toronto Act 2006.
All those in favor, any opposed, that item carries. Madam Clerk, I'll just check. That is the last item of business. And with that, Deputy Mayor Morley moves adjournment. Thank you to the clerk staff, to the Toronto Public Service staff, and to everybody that participated today. Much appreciated.
Mr. Chair, can we have a recorded vote on adjournment? Because everyone is here, and I just wanted to make sure that got captured, okay?
No? We've adjourned, I'm sorry.